Alright guys, we have a 4-moms Mamaroo Bassinet here that was giving us a squeaking noise when baby was in there. It was not squeaking without any weight on there, but I did find the fix that works for us. You just get to this state by taking the 8 center screws off of the top of the bassinet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, there's 8 Phillips heads there, then it just slides right off. There are other videos where you have to take the whole bottom off. I don't think we need to get there, but I just took the silicone lube here, use it for car stuff, and I greased these two. You can sort of see, get this thing running so you can see all the things that are moving. Okay, so you guys can see that little metal sort of thing pulling. It's a metal rod with a piece of plastic on it over both sides. I was able to sort of shimmy them side to side and get some of that grease on that rod. That's what was making the noise, specifically when there was weight on top of it. And that is what got rid of the noise for our specific instance. So hopefully that doesn't fix it. You'll have to get a little bit more involved here. You'll need to take off the protectors that keep you from getting to the sliding rod and wheel and whatnot. So you'll have to turn the bassinet upside down. You'll see I put the top end back on. I just put like 3 or 4 screws back in just to keep it in place while I turned it upside down. You'll have to take off all of these screws on the underside. There's 4, 8, 12, 14 screws, 4 on each of these 3 sides and then 2 on the top end. Once you take those screws off, that releases this panel right here, which also is what keeps the shield seated. So you won't be able to get much further than what we did earlier without taking this underside off. Once you take those 4 screws off, you can flip this back upside down or right side up rather. You can choose to leave the legs on if you wish. But this plastic cover off, and then you're gonna have this shield right here. Theoretically you can get to the fix just from this state, but it's not much extra work to remove this shield. You just take hex into each of these 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Once you do that, this just pops right off also. Be careful grabbing this. There's grease all on the underside. So I'd advise just grabbing on the inside of this, or else you're gonna get grease. I couldn't easily tell where the noise was coming from. So a couple of ways I was able to reproduce the noise to make sure it was fixed or not fixed, more or less. I was able to push down on these 2 metal rods while this was running, this guy and this guy at the same time, to mimic the weight. That gave me 2 things that allowed me to know that the noise was coming from this actual mechanism right here and not from something below it, or not from this guy either, knowing that the pressure was going on these joints right here and down in here. And I'll talk about the part I didn't consider and eventually found out. The other thing I was able to do when I wanted to, obviously pushing on both of those at the same time, you still can't really see what's going on. You can actually place the bassinet on top of this while this is off. Let's see if it turns off. While this is off, and just sort of seat it in these little holes right here. Again, since it wasn't making noise without a load, what I did was I put the car seat inside of the bassinet along with the diaper bag, just to mimic that weight and so that I could see sort of more so where the noise was coming from. I didn't actually find that to be all that useful because the bassinet still comes right around here, so it covers a lot of it, but it still gives you time to fully appreciate what's going on under there while it's under load. So those are the 2 ways I was able to figure out that I hadn't fixed the problem. In terms of actually fixing the problem, there were a few videos, I think it might have been with an older, maybe a newer generation of this bassinet, where this rod in particular was the issue. Now, I did what other videos did, and I took this out, lubed it up. I used a silicone lubricant. I'll post a link of it below. I used a silicone lubricant for this the first night, took it out on both sides. That actually only made it go away for one night or so. I'm not sure if that was a issue or maybe indicative of the other issue, which I eventually found is the final fix. But doing that made it go away for one night. So the next night when it came back, I used a drill bit and drilled through it, and I took out this mechanism. I'll show you how in a second. Drilled through it, gave it some more space, added more silicone lubricant to give it more room. It felt like it was sticking when it was coming out. That didn't fix the problem long term. So eventually, I figured out it was actually this guy under here. You can sort of see it's a metal rod with a piece of plastic. Let's see if I can get a better angle there. With a piece of plastic, this guy right here, this metal rod is what I ended up greasing up. Sorry for the camera. And that is what eventually got rid of my squeak indefinitely. I did on both sides. Again, I don't know if that's going to be a fix for everybody, because it seemed like other people had success with other fixes. I saw another one where the guy was suggesting that this sort of carrier, this shield right here was loose, and that's what was causing his noise. Mine was also loose, but that wasn't what was creating the noise, so I think it's loose by design. And in looking in the way that this works, I don't actually think it would be the issue. I know his was vibrating most, so maybe that was a different thing going on. So I want to show you the way I was able to get this mechanism undone so I could pull that rod out. And right now I don't actually have it fully assembled. That's why it keeps sliding out. But one thing I had luck with was I would sort of wait for it, based on the side that I was working on, I'd wait for it to give me some room and for it to be in the full upright position, and then I would pull the power. That would reduce the tension on this spring right here. This spring isn't, I wouldn't consider it to be particularly heavy. I was able to, you can just sort of pry it off right there. I was catching with my hand when I pried it off, but maybe that's dangerous. It did fling, I don't know, maybe 2 feet after when I did it without it. Able to pretty easily pull it back on with your hand. I can see if I can do it right here. So you just saw, I just pulled, oh, you can actually see me pull it off, but I just pulled it off here, pried it off with a screwdriver, and then just to put it back on, just sort of pulled it. And it should sort of just sit on there. Give it a couple tugs, make sure it's on there good. So that's the way to get that spring back off. And once that spring is off, you can work a little bit more freely in here. If you pull this out with that spring still being on, what's going to happen is those are going to collapse on one another. It's going to be kind of a pain to get that rod back in on the back end of this. There's a little nut. Be careful not to over tighten the bolt, because the nut is only locked in there by plastic. So if you over tighten that, you're going to strip the plastic behind it, and it's going to be hard to get that bolt out. Don't ask me how I know. So yeah, hopefully this helps. This is now 3 nights after applying lube on that little guy and the other guy on the back side without any noise. So pretty happy with the outcome. Seems like some people have had luck returning it. We bought this secondhand. Looked like there was maybe somebody else working on this beforehand and they gave up on the noise. So that's why we got stuck with it and weren't able to replace it. It doesn't hurt to lube other things additionally. So even if you find out this is the issue, it doesn't hurt to lube these rods up. These wheels right here. I lubed these creases where these 2 bars meet, these 2, I don't know which one to call that. I lubed in between there because it did look like there was some metal on metal occurring. You can sort of see in there where metal on metal was occurring. So that was all just troubleshooting or more so guessing, checking where the problem was. But ultimately it did end up being this guy right here. So hopefully this is helpful for you guys and you have a similar issue and fix.